Isn't it odd that in the first Valentine's half month, well, I review an episode involving Jenny and Sheldon, and now in this episode, it's about Jenny with a robot being disguised as Sheldon? Well, in all honesty, it really goes to show how much years have passed after I skipped 2019 and 2020 over other activities instead of doing Valentine's half month yearly. But then again, we all have to make changes. So this episode is called Shell Game, and it's really about Sheldon wanting Jenny to go with him to a museum filled with snakes, and Jenny denies. Now, it's no surprise that Sheldon has a massive crush on Jenny, while Jenny just wants to be friends with Sheldon. So her just rejecting his offer to go to a museum of lizards, you can really tell that she's just trying to do something for herself, while also just trying to be very nice towards Sheldon. Since this is the first season and she's just trying to get into the world involving humans, it's really obvious that she's just trying to actually figure out how the society works, while also having a crush on a robot that she loves at first sight. And when Sheldon told Jenny that robots are selfish and you shouldn't trust them, I honestly think that his motivations of just trying to be with Jenny are just way too high to be considered good. Seriously, when Mr. MLAATR said that he's a stalker, it really sums up everything. Especially that the robot that he's controlling in this episode, he was inside the robot the entire time. And as the time we get to see Jenny figuring out that the silver shell was actually Sheldon the whole time, it was completely off screen. Yeah. They completely dropped the whole silver shell thing completely, and I'm not saying this because I didn't watch all the episodes. I'm saying this because Jenny said this to Sheldon in the first episodes of the third season. So in all honesty, I honestly think that this entire plot really makes it meaningless to actually take it seriously with Jenny's relationship with a robot. But yeah, I really think that for what Sheldon is trying to do in this episode, it honestly just makes him more of an idiot than actually just getting what he wants. He should have made a robot not the silver shell, especially as a hero, while also just trying to make an ordinary robot doing ordinary things with other humans. That way, Jenny can actually see the bigger picture on robots being jerks, while also not being fully attracted to that robot. This episode, in my opinion, is majorly a missed opportunity of the silver shell, which is what Sheldon named the robot that Jenny fell in love with. And considering that if Jenny finds out that the robot was actually Sheldon the whole time, not only she will be heartbroken, but the fact that she would despise Sheldon forever. So I honestly think that the fact that they did it off screen really goes to show that they want Jenny to actually respect Sheldon in some other way, despite the fact that the off-screen thing doesn't change anything on the fact that Jenny's heart is still broken. I honestly don't know how they resolve this whole plot off-screen if they actually write an episode cater to it. I mean, let's go talk about the silver shell. Since that Sheldon has been reading comic books and taking inspiration by using the silver shell dialogue from those comics, he really did a good job, but at the same time, he pushed way too far to the point that once you actually figure out the bigger picture and the fact that in the later episodes, this relationship between the silver shell and Jenny becomes less and less interesting, it really shows how much Sheldon just doesn't know how to do with the silver shell other than just using it in order to get Jenny's attention. In the next episode, he's in a conflict with Don Prima, which understandably, he's the hottest male in Jenny's school. And in the next episode, it's a prom dance, which Sheldon has to prevent any villains to arrive at the school. And in the next episode, it's mainly a talk episode that really has nothing to do with the silver shell whatsoever when it comes to Jenny's feelings towards him. So yeah, everything I just talked about is basically my issues with the whole Silver Shell character and his appearances. Because in those appearances, especially the off-screen situation, this episode is way more meaningless than the other episodes I've watched from this show. So, what else do I like about this episode? It's in the museum where all the lizards have gone loose and the bigger lizard is about to tackle the humans inside of the museum. So, Jenny has to wait for the Silver Shell to arrive so that he can do all the work. But unfortunately, he's not coming. So Jenny decides to do all the superhero work by herself. And at the end of the episode, she adores him so much. And if something bad actually happens, in the fact that if he's actually a jerk, it would instantly break her heart. Her robotic heart, basically. And this is what makes this episode good once it premieres at Nickelodeon, because before all the other episodes involving the Silver Shell, it really shows how much that Sheldon could have made a good chance to make an impression while also just trying to do the right thing, for not only for himself, but also for Jenny. Unfortunately, that potential didn't happen, and at this point, I honestly think it's mostly Nickelodeon that completely caused all of this. I mean, the production of the first 2 seasons were properly planned out, but for the 3rd season, I have no idea what happened with the production of the 3rd season. So I honestly think that what they did in the 3rd season is what they had to skip on in order to make that 3rd season somewhat of a continuation over the 2nd season. But at the end of the day, it didn't continue anything, and that includes the Silver Shell. I know that this review is more of a downer compared to the other reviews that I've done for this month, especially the older ones, but in all honesty, just by thinking about this episode, especially the appearance of the Silver Shell, I honestly think that this episode is basically a wasted opportunity. So I don't even find any kind of enjoyment in this episode like I did when I watched it back in 2004, while I was a young child. And then looking at it 10 years later, and I'm talking about 2014, I really enjoyed it. But thinking about it as of now, I really think that this episode really didn't need to happen if all this stuff was going to be cutting out to begin with. Granted, people may see this that I don't when it comes to their theories, but for my theory, I honestly think that what happens off screen is honestly disappointing than anything else. And since I have issues with off-screen situations that does nothing but to further the plot and characters, there's no excuses here. I give this episode a 5 out of 10.
Let's get this started again. Me and my whole crew, we live with no rules. Let's get this started again. So if you feel like me too, there's only one thing to do. Let's go. Pay down, call the taxi cab. Got a case in the fridge and a bottle at the crib. Let's all get twisted, double fisting, drink up the resisting. Let's get this started again. Let's get this started again. Let's get